The massive space station hung in the darkness between stars, its crystal walls gleaming with the light of distant suns. Inside the great hall, creatures from across the galaxy sat in rows of floating seats, their different shapes and sizes creating a strange but impressive sight. This was the Galactic Council, where the most powerful species in the known universe made decisions that affected billions of lives. Ambassador Veltar stood at the center of the room, his tall reptilian form covered in dark green scales that caught the light as he moved. His people, the Zephyrians, had ruled most of the galaxy for over 3,000 years. They were strong, smart, and completely convinced that they knew what was best for everyone else. "Fellow beings of the Council," Veltar began, his voice carrying easily through the hall's translation system, "we face a new threat to galactic peace. A species that calls itself human has discovered faster-than-light travel and begun spreading from their home planet." A holographic display appeared above the assembly, showing a small blue world orbiting a yellow star. Images of primitive cities, crude spacecraft, and violent conflicts filled the air. The assembled aliens watched with a mixture of curiosity and disgust. "These humans," Veltar continued, "are violent, unpredictable, and completely lacking in proper civilization. They fight constant wars among themselves. Their technology is barely advanced enough to leave their own star system. Yet they dare to venture into civilized space without permission or proper guidance." In the observation gallery, Captain Lee Min-ho sat quietly, his dark eyes taking in every word. As Earth's first diplomatic observer to the Council, he had been allowed to watch but not speak. Beside him, Dr. Park Soo-young made careful notes on a small device, recording everything for the report they would send back to Earth. "These humans destroyed their own planet's environment," Veltar went on, his voice growing more dramatic. "They have dozens of different languages, hundreds of different governments, and they cannot even agree on simple things like how to measure time or distance. How can such a chaotic species be trusted with the power to travel between stars?" Several aliens in the assembly made sounds of agreement. The hegemony representatives, massive slug-like creatures who controlled the galaxies. Trade routes bubbled with approval. The collective minds, who shared thoughts across their entire species, flashed lights that meant they found the idea of individual thinking disgusting. But not everyone agreed. In the far corner of the hall, a being made of pure energy contained, within a crystal shell, began to glow with warning colors. This was the Altarian delegate, representing one of the oldest and wisest species in the galaxy. "Honored colleagues," the Altarian's voice was like wind chimes in a gentle breeze, "we must be very careful here. Our preliminary studies of human psychology show something unusual. These beings adapt and grow stronger when faced with challenges. Their history is full of examples where pressure and hardship made them more dangerous, not less." Veltar's mouth twisted into what humans would recognize as a sneer. "Respected Altarian, you speak of a species that has barely learned to leave its own planet. What possible threat could they pose to civilizations that have ruled the stars since before their sun was born?" The crystal being pulsed with different colors, a sign of deep concern. "That is exactly what worries us. They are young, yes, but they learn incredibly fast. In the few years since they achieved space travel, they have already begun to reverse engineer technology from crashed ships. They ask questions that we stopped asking long ago. They see possibilities where we see only established facts." Dr. Park nudged Captain Lee with her elbow and whispered in Korean, "They're talking about us like we're some kind of disease." Her voice was too quiet for the translation systems to pick up, but Lee understood the worry in her tone. "The solution is simple," Veltar announced, spreading his arms wide. "We establish a quarantine zone around human space. No trade, no technology transfer, no contact with civilized species until they learn to behave properly. A few years of isolation will teach them humility." The vote was called quickly. One by one, the species of the galaxy made their choice. The hegemony voted yes, wanting to protect their trade monopolies. The collective voted yes, disgusted by human individuality. The warrior clans voted yes, seeing humans as potential rivals. Species after species raised their appendages, tentacles. or energy fields in agreement. When the counting was finished, 43 species had voted to quarantine humanity. Only the Altarians and 2 small weak species had refused to support the measure. "The decision is made," Veltar declared with satisfaction. "The human species will be contained until they learn proper respect for galactic civilization." As the assembly began to disperse, Captain Lee and Dr. Park sat in stunned silence. They had come to the council hoping to establish peaceful relations with their galactic neighbors. Instead, they had witnessed their species being sentenced to isolation. "What do we tell Earth?" Dr. Park asked quietly. Lee stood up slowly, his jaw set with determination. "Tell them the truth. The galaxy thinks we're too dangerous to be allowed to grow. They think isolation will make us weak and obedient. And what do you think will happen?" Lee looked out at the alien delegates filing out of the hall, most of them completely confident that they had solved the human problem with a simple vote. "I think they have no idea what they just did. They're about to learn that when you try to cage a human, you don't get a pet. You get something much more dangerous." The die was cast. Humanity's first test among the stars was about to begin. 6 months after the Galactic Council's vote, the effects of the quarantine hit human space like a slow-moving storm. Trade ships that had been welcomed at alien stations now found docking bays closed to them. Supply convoys carrying critical technology simply stopped arriving. Communication channels that had buzzed with friendly alien voices went silent. The mining colony of New Sol. Administrator Kim Ji-ho stood in his office watching the last alien supply ship disappear into hyperspace. The vessel's captain had been apologetic, but firm. No more deliveries until Earth accepted council oversight. The colony's 3,000 miners and their families now faced a simple choice: submit or starve. "Sir." His assistant Yoon Hana entered. With a worried expression, carrying a tablet full of bad news. "The food stores will last for months at current consumption. The medical supplies are even worse. We have maybe 6 weeks of basic medicines left." Kim nodded grimly. He had expected this.
What?
"Send a message to all department heads. We're moving to emergency protocols immediately. Get me a secure channel to Earth. It's time to see what our scientists have been working on." Light years away in the Kepler system, Lieutenant Commander Choi Daeon studied her patrol ship's sensor display with growing anger. For the past week, 3 Zephyrian vessels had been systematically turning away human cargo ships from the main trade routes. The aliens claimed they were just enforcing the quarantine, but their actions were clearly designed to hurt human colonies. "Commander," her tactical officer called out, "the freighter Gwangju is requesting assistance. Zephyrians are demanding to search their cargo." Choi knew what was in that cargo hold: medical supplies desperately needed by the Tau Ceti colony, where a viral outbreak was spreading among the children. "Signal the Zephyrians. Tell them they're operating in human space without authorization. They're responding, ma'am. They say the council quarantine gives them authority anywhere humans operate." "Do they?" Choi's voice was dangerously calm. "Helm, intercept course. Maximum speed." The human patrol ship Indomitable streaked toward the confrontation, her hull gleaming with modifications that shouldn't have been possible. In the engine room, Chief Engineer Baehoon watched power levels that would have made alien engineers panic. Human technology was advancing faster than anyone had thought possible. Dr. Song Gi-won had been working 18-hour days in her laboratory on Luna Station, taking apart every piece of alien technology humanity had managed to acquire. Most came from old crash sites or abandoned equipment, but each component told a story about how alien science worked. The breakthrough came when she realized something important. Alien technology wasn't necessarily better than human technology, just different. The problem with these species, she explained to her research team, is that they've been using the same basic designs for thousands of years. They stopped asking, what if we tried something else? We've been asking that question for our entire history. Her latest creation sat on the lab bench, a shield generator that combined alien energy projection with human power systems. The result was protection that was 30% stronger than the original alien design. It could be built with materials found on any human world. The confrontation in the Kepler system lasted exactly 17 minutes. When the Indomitable arrived, the Zephyrian ships found themselves facing a human vessel that moved like nothing they had ever seen. The ship's enhanced engines allowed maneuvers that should have torn apart any normal spacecraft, while her improved shields absorbed their warning shots without even flickering. "This is Commander Choi of the Human Defense Force," she broadcast on all frequencies. "You will withdraw from human space immediately, or face the consequences." The Zephyrian commander, expecting to face primitive human technology, found his targeting computers unable to lock onto the rapidly moving ship. When the humans positioned themselves between the cargo vessel and the blockade, the aliens faced a choice: start a shooting war or back down. They chose to withdraw, but not before sending detailed reports about human technological capabilities back to their superiors. The reports would cause considerable alarm in Zephyrian command centers. Word of the successful confrontation spread through human space within hours. On mining worlds and frontier colonies, human settlers who had been preparing for the worst suddenly felt hope returning. The message was clear: humanity would not submit quietly to alien pressure. But the aliens were also learning. In the capital of the Zephyrian Empire, military analysts studied the reports from Kepler with growing concern. The humans had not just resisted, they had demonstrated technology that surpassed Zephyrian capabilities in several areas. "How is this possible?" demanded General Kekstar, the Empire's supreme military commander. "They've had spaceflight for less than a decade. We've been building starships for 3 millennia. His chief scientist, a thin creature with multiple arms and glowing eyes, manipulated holographic displays showing the encounter. "General, I believe we have made an error in our assumptions. We thought their primitive technology meant they were primitive thinkers. Instead, it appears their recent development means they approach problems differently than we do. Explain. Perfect our technology over centuries, making small improvements to established designs. They seem to completely reimagine how things should work. It's unsettling." Back on Earth, President Han Yemin received reports from across human space. The quarantine was hurting, but human colonies were adapting faster than anyone had expected. More importantly, human technology was advancing at an incredible rate. "How long before we achieve technological parity with the Council species?" asked his science advisor. Dr. Park Soo-Yang, recently returned from her observation mission, smiled grimly. "Mr. President, in some areas we may have already surpassed them. But the question isn't whether we can match their technology, it's whether we want to." The galaxy had expected the human quarantine to be a simple matter of economic pressure forcing quick surrender. Instead, they had inadvertently created the perfect conditions for humanity to do what it did best: adapt, innovate, and grow stronger under pressure. The real test was yet to come. The research station Harmony floated peacefully at the edge of human space, its white hull gleaming against the starfield. Inside, 3,000 of humanity's brightest minds worked on projects that would have seemed impossible just years before. Dr. Lim Minseo stood in the main laboratory, watching her team test a new communication device that could send messages faster than any alien technology. "The breakthrough is incredible," she told her assistant over the intercom. "We can now communicate instantly across dozens of light years. The aliens have nothing like this." The station represented everything that made the Zephyrians nervous about humanity. Here, former enemies worked together peacefully. Korean scientists collaborated with American engineers. Russian physicists shared discoveries with Japanese researchers. The human ability to cooperate despite their differences was something the aliens found both fascinating and terrifying. At exactly 14:30 station time, the sensors detected incoming ships. The Zephyrian strike force appeared without warning. Their dark vessels emerging from hyperspace like predators. Dr. Lim had barely enough time to activate the emergency broadcast before the first plasma beams struck the station. The attack was brutal and efficient. Zephyrians made no attempt to demand surrender or evacuate civilians. Their plasma cannons tore through the station's hull like paper, venting atmosphere and lives into the cold vacuum of space. Within minutes, Harmony was nothing but expanding debris and silent voices. But the aliens had made a critical error. They had broadcast the attack live across the galaxy, wanting every species to see what happened to those who defied the Council. Instead of terrifying humanity into submission, they had given the human race something far more dangerous than fear. They had given them righteous anger. On Earth, President Han Yemen watched the footage with tears streaming down his face. Around him, the emergency session of the United Human Assembly sat in stunned silence as the images of destruction played on the main screen. 3,000 innocent people, killed for the crime of being human and refusing to submit. My fellow humans, President Han's voice was steady, despite his grief. Today we learned the true face of our galactic neighbors. They did not attack us because we threatened them. They attacked us because we dared to exist without their permission. In the military section of the assembly, Admiral Kang Sulji sat with her fellow commanders. Her face showed no emotion, but her hands were clenched into fists. She had spent months preparing for this possibility, hoping it would never come. Now the choice was simple: submit to alien rule or fight for human freedom. The Galactic Council believes we are weak, President Han continued. They think we will surrender rather than face their superior technology. They believe we are divided and cannot stand together against them. He paused, looking directly into the cameras that would carry his words to every human world. Today we prove them wrong. The vote was unanimous. Every single representative from every human world and colony voted to declare war on the Galactic Coalition. The species that had dismissed humanity as primitive and chaotic was about to learn what humans could accomplish when they were truly united. The transformation of human space began immediately. Merchant vessels received orders to report to military. Shipyards for conversion to warships. Research stations shifted their focus from peaceful exploration to weapons development. The vast industrial capacity that had built colonies across dozens of worlds now had a single purpose. Survival. Dr. Shin Min-jae, leading the Human Reverse Engineering Project, made an announcement that changed everything. Standing before the assembled military leadership, she activated a holographic display showing alien technology blueprints covered with human modifications. Admirals, we have not only figured out how their technology works, we have made it better. Our manufacturing methods allow us to build their components more efficiently, and our materials science has found weaknesses in their designs that they never noticed. Admiral Kang studied the technical specifications with amazement. How is this possible? They have had this technology for thousands of years. That is exactly the problem, Dr. Shin replied with a bitter smile. They have had the same technology. For thousands of years, they stopped trying to improve it. We have had 6 months to study their systems with fresh eyes and human creativity. The first human warships to emerge from the orbital shipyards looked nothing like the crude vessels the aliens expected. These ships carried alien shield generators, powered by human fusion reactors that produced twice the energy output. They mounted weapons that combined alien energy projection with human targeting computers for deadly accuracy. Most importantly, they had engines that could outmaneuver anything in the Zephyrian fleet. The aliens had made their calculations. Based on human technology from 6 months ago, they had no idea how fast humanity could adapt and improve when their survival depended on it. On the Zephyrian homeworld, Emperor Zector received reports from his intelligence services with growing unease. The humans were not behaving as expected. Instead of fragmenting under pressure, they had become more unified instead of begging. For mercy, they were building a war machine, Your Majesty, his military advisor reported. Our latest intelligence suggests the humans have achieved technological parity with our forces in several areas. Some of their new designs appear to be superior to our own. The Emperor's crest darkened with anger. Impossible. We have ruled the galaxy for millennia. How can a species that discovered spaceflight yesterday match our technology? Perhaps, Your Majesty, that is precisely why they can match it. They are not bound by our traditions or our assumptions about how things should work. Across the galaxy, other species watched the developing conflict with growing interest. The Traders Guild, whose profits depended on stable commerce, began to question whether this war was wise. Several minor species, long oppressed by Zephyrian rule, secretly hoped the humans might succeed where others had failed. The galaxy was about to learn that when you push humans too far, they do not break. They forged themselves into something stronger, more dangerous, and absolutely determined to win. The real war was about to begin. The Battle of Vega Station began at dawn, ship time. Admiral Kong Sulji stood on the bridge of her flagship Seoul, watching 300 Zephyrian warships form up for attack. Her own fleet numbered only 100 vessels, but she felt no fear. The aliens were about to learn that numbers meant nothing when facing human innovation and determination. "All ships, execute Dragon Formation," Admiral Kong commanded calmly. Her fleet scattered in what looked like complete chaos to the Zephyrian computers.
Ow.
The alien commanders smiled, thinking the humans were panicking. They ordered their ships to exploit the gaps in the human formation. It was exactly what Admiral Kong wanted them to do. The moment the Zephyrian ships moved into the apparent openings, they found themselves trapped in a perfectly planned crossfire. Human vessels that had seemed scattered suddenly revealed their true positions. The Dragon Formation was not chaos. It was a weapon that used the enemy's assumptions against them. "Enemy flagship is breaking formation," reported Captain Moon. Yeji, from her reconnaissance ship, are trying to retreat to long range. "Negative," Admiral Kang replied. "Colonel Park, you are cleared for boarding action." Colonel Park Junho had been waiting for this moment. His assault troops, enhanced with captured alien biotechnology, could operate in environments that would kill normal humans. They moved through space in modified boarding pods that the Zephyrian sensors could barely detect. The alien command ship Dominion was the pride of the Zephyrian fleet, a massive vessel that had never been boarded in 3 centuries of service. Its crew had no idea what was coming for them. Park's soldiers cut through the hull like it was paper, using human-sized plasma cutters that burned hotter than anything in the Zephyrian arsenal. They moved through the ship's corridors like shadows, their enhanced reflexes and human tactical training making them nearly impossible to stop. "Resistance is collapsing on all decks," Park reported to Admiral Kang. "Their combat training assumes enemies will fight according to established rules. They have no defense against human flexibility." The battle lasted 18 hours. When it ended, the mighty Zephyrian armada was scattered across the system, their command ship captured, and the strategic Vega crossroads under human control. More importantly, humanity had achieved this victory with minimal losses, proof that superior tactics and technology could overcome raw numbers. But the victory at Vega was only the beginning. While the main fleet fought pitched battles, smaller human forces began a campaign that struck at the heart of the alien alliance, their economy captain. Temin commanded one of these raider groups, 12 fast ships that appeared without warning in supposedly safe alien space. His target today was a hegemony trade convoy carrying rare metals from the outer worlds to the core systems. "Remember," he told his crew over the intercom, "we're not pirates, we're liberators. Every ship we capture, every cargo we take, weakens their ability to wage war against human colonies." The convoy's escort vessels were built for intimidation, not fighting. When the human raiders appeared, using Dr. Jung Han's new stealth technology, the aliens found themselves facing enemies they could barely see on their sensors. The battle was over in minutes, but Lee did something the aliens never expected. Instead of simply taking the cargo, he offered the hegemony crew a choice. "You can return to your masters and tell them their trade routes are no longer safe," he said over the communication channel. "Or you can join us. We're building a galaxy where every species has the right to choose their own path." Half the alien crew chose to join the humans that day. Dr. Jung Houn worked from her mobile laboratory aboard the Raider fleet, constantly improving human technology. Her latest breakthrough was a stealth system that made human ships invisible to all known alien sensors. More importantly, she had learned to mass-produce the technology using materials available on any human world. "The beauty of human engineering," she explained to Admiral Kong during a secure transmission, "is that we never accept that something cannot be improved." The aliens built their technology to work within certain limits. We ignore those limits completely. The psychological impact of the human campaign was enormous. Across the galaxy, species that had been forced to submit to Zephyrian rule began to question their overlords. Every human victory proved that the mighty empire could be defeated. Every alien ship that joined the human cause showed that cooperation was possible on the industrial world of Kepler Prime. Administrator Yujiho, received a secret transmission from the Traders Guild. The message was simple, but revolutionary. They wanted to negotiate a separate peace with humanity. "We have lost more ships to your raiders in 6 months than we lost in the previous century of normal piracy," the guild representative admitted. "Our profits are disappearing. End your attacks on our convoys, and we will stop supporting the Zephyrian war effort." It was the first crack in the alien alliance, and humanity was quick to exploit it. The Altarians, who had warned against the human quarantine from the beginning, sent their own secret message. They offered to share intelligence about Zephyrian military movements in exchange for human protection of their worlds. "We told them not to push your species," the Altarian ambassador transmitted. "Now we ask that you remember not all of us supported this war." Within a year, the Zephyrian Empire found itself fighting not just humanity, but a growing rebellion of species who saw the humans as liberators rather than conquerors. The galaxy was changing, and the old order was crumbling. Emperor Zector stood in his throne room, watching reports of another human victory. His advisors spoke of retreat, of negotiation, of surrender. The species he had dismissed as primitive barbarians now controlled a third of the galaxy. The humans had done more than survive the alien pressure. They had turned it into strength, and that strength was reshaping the galaxy itself. The siege of Zephyr Prime lasted 3 weeks, but it felt like an eternity to Emperor Zector. From his palace balcony, he could see the human fleet filling the sky above his capital city. Ships from dozens of species that had once bowed to Zephyrian rule now flew alongside human vessels, their weapons pointed at the heart of his empire. Admiral Kong Sulji stood on the bridge of her flagship Sol, looking down at the world that had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years. Around her, representatives from the Traders Guild, the Altarians, and 20 other species waited for her decision. They had all joined humanity's cause, but they looked to her for leadership. "Admiral," her communications officer reported, "the Emperor is requesting permission to come aboard for surrender negotiations." Kong nodded slowly. 2 years ago, she had been a simple patrol captain, watching alien ships turn away human traders. She held the fate of the galaxy's most powerful empire in her hands. The irony was not lost on her. Emperor Zector arrived in a simple shuttle, accompanied only by his personal aide. The being who had once commanded the loyalty of 47 species now looked small and defeated as he walked through the corridors of a human warship. His scales had lost their proud shine. His movements spoke of a ruler who knew his time was over. The surrender ceremony took place in the Sol's main conference room. Representatives from across the galaxy watched as the mighty Zephyrian Empire formally acknowledged defeat. But what happened next surprised everyone present. "We don't want your empire," Admiral Kong said simply. Her words translated into dozens of languages for the watching delegates. "We don't want to rule over other species or force them to obey human law. We want something much simpler. The promise that no species will ever again face what you did to us." Emperor Zector looked up in confusion. "You... You're not going? To destroy us?" "Destruction solves nothing," Kong replied. "We want you to join us in building something better. A galaxy where every species has the right to develop freely, to explore, to make their own choices about their future." The new Galactic Charter was written over the following months. Ambassador Yuji Ho, Earth's representative to the Reformed Council, worked with delegates from 73 species to create laws that protected everyone's freedom. The document that emerged was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The old council ruled by fear, Ambassador Yu explained to the assembly. They maintained peace by crushing anyone who threatened their power. We propose a different way. Peace through cooperation, strength through diversity, progress through freedom. The Altarian delegate, whose warnings about humanity had been ignored so long ago, pulsed with satisfaction. The humans have proven that evolution does not stop with technology. It continues with wisdom, with growth, with the courage to choose cooperation over domination. The Charter established several key principles. No species could be quarantined or contained without their consent. Technology sharing would be voluntary, not forced. Trade agreements must benefit all parties equally. Most importantly, every species had the right to develop at their own pace without interference. The Zephyrians were not destroyed or enslaved. Instead, they were given a choice: reform their government and join the new galactic community as equals, or face isolation until they were ready to change. Most chose reform, though it took years for them to adapt to their new role as partners rather than rulers. 5 years after the war's end, Captain Lee Temin stood on the bridge of the exploration vessel Incheon as it approached the galactic rim. His crew was a mix of humans and former enemies. A Zephyrian engineer worked alongside a human physicist, while a hegemony navigator plotted courses with an Altarian computer specialist. "Captain," his science officer reported, "we're detecting signs of a previously unknown civilization in the Centauri relay system. The signals suggest they've just achieved faster-than-light travel." Lee smiled at the irony. Been the unknown species that terrified the galaxy. They led expeditions to welcome new civilizations into the galactic community. The humans had learned from their own experience. First contact should be about friendship, not fear. "Set course for the new signals," he ordered. "And remember our protocols. We approach as friends and equals. No demands, no threats, no assumptions about what they should become." Back on Earth, Dr. Park Soo-young worked in her new laboratory, developing technologies that would be shared freely with any species that wanted them. The competitive advantage that had won the war was now being given away, but she was not worried. Human strength was never about having the best weapons, she explained to her students. It was about our ability to adapt, to learn, to grow. Can't steal that or copy it. You have to develop it yourself. The galaxy had changed in ways no one could have predicted. Species that had been enemies for millennia now worked together on exploration missions. Trade flowed freely between worlds that had never trusted each other before. Most importantly, young species were no longer afraid to develop their own unique technologies and cultures. The Traders Guild, once focused only on profit, now funded educational programs for developing species. The former warrior clans had become peacekeeping forces, protecting trade routes and helping settle disputes. Even the collective, who had once despised individual thought, began to appreciate the benefits of diversity. The warnings had been clear: don't push the humans. The galaxy had pushed anyway, and learned that when humans push back, they don't seek revenge. They seek something better for everyone. The species that had once tried to cage humanity now competed for human partnership, having discovered that cooperation was far more profitable than domination. In the end, humanity's greatest victory was not defeating their enemies, but turning them into friends.